Hey guys, this is Phil the MMA Dude back with the 6th episode of the Split Decision podcast here with my brilliant and beautiful co-host, the Fight Geek, and he's a beautiful guy, so I felt I had to say that. Let's just be honest here. Fight Geek, you're a brilliant guy, you're a beautiful guy, and we have got a great show for everyone today. Thanks so much for the patience. I know that we haven't had an episode in a little while. Me and Fight Geek have been working behind the scenes to have this coming out a little bit more consistently. We're aiming for every other week, so you can expect this podcast going forward every 2 weeks, no questions asked, unless, of course, something horrible happens or it's Christmas, because let's be honest, no one wants to record a podcast on Christmas. Am I right, Fight Geek?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. So let's jump right into it. We have got an amazing episode on deck, and let me just start with this. We had the best fan questions by far this week, so thank you to everyone. I mean, Fight Geek, do you want to say anything about that? The questions were amazing.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who follows the pages and took the time to give us really good questions this week, all kinds of questions. So we're going to try and get to as many of those as we can, and we really appreciate you guys interacting with us.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's why he's both brilliant and beautiful, everyone. That's why I said that. And
I appreciate that.
Of course. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Episode 6, this is what we're going to cover as a quick outline. UFC Denver Reactions. Then we're going to go to Conor versus Cowboy. Is that fight going to happen? Is it not? We're going to break that down. UFC Argentina Preview. And then we're going to jump to those juicy fan questions. We're going to leave plenty of time for those because, like I said, they were the best fan questions that we've gotten yet. So let's jump right into it, Fight Geek. I'm going to start off by asking you a question. Korean Zombie versus Yair. Now, I got to give you credit. I picked Korean Zombie, and I thought, and you know this, off the scene, I thought, I thought you were crazy for picking Yair, but, you were right. I was wrong. Here's the question. Was it the best KO of all time?
Wow. Best KO of all time?
Considering the circumstances, considering he was down, he was going to lose the fight if he didn't stop it. That's a fact, not an opinion, because we saw the scorecards.
Yeah, the scorecards proved that, which I found a little surprising, but that fight was very back and forth, regardless of what the card said. But no, I would say it's not the greatest KO of all time. I certainly believe at this point it's the knockout of the year.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm a firm believer that Holly Holm's knockout over Ronda Rousey is the number one knockout in the history of the UFC. Just because of what it meant, who it was, how the aftermath. Ronda Rousey never returned to this being even a shell of the same fighter that she was before that knockout. So that knockout changed the history of the sport. I don't know if this has that kind of implication, but just from, recency bias and just what an absolute classic war that was, I would definitely say knockout of the year 2018 is the Korean Zombie versus Yair Rodriguez. Amazing fight. Hats off to both guys. It was one of those fights where it felt like it could have been in any era or any promotion to me. It felt like we could have watched that in Pride. We could have saw that in Strikeforce. We could have seen it, just a classic matchup, it did it justice. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. And I think you're absolutely right that Holly Holm knocking out Ronda, UFC 193, definitely should be real high up there. I'm going to really respectfully disagree with you, and I'm going to start off by saying I think that this was, and I don't like all the hyperbole, but I'm sorry, this was the best KO of all time. Just considering the circumstances, Yair is down, he'd been cut from the UFC, then brought back, and at 4:59 of the fifth, he's going to lose the fight, remember, and he pulls off one of the most incredible knockouts with 1 second to go. It was the record for the latest knockout. Now, Demetrius Johnson had a submission at 4:59 of the fifth, but this was the latest knockout in history, and I thought it was the best KO of all time, and I think Yair deserves total credit for that. Now, having said that, Fight Geek, this is
was pretty amazing.
It was amazing, but now Now I'm about to wade into controversial territory. Now I'm about to
Okay.
piss some people off, and I'm sure you're going to have some thoughts on this. But you cannot look me in the eye right now, Fight Geek, and tell me that Yair's elbow was on purpose. That was totally by accident. What do you think?
I don't know if it was by accident. I think that he was in a flow state, and I think that he's the kind of striker who is that creative naturally. I'm sure that when he does his workouts and he does work on things from odd angles like that, that's a lifetime of being, an incredibly versatile striker. Yair Rodriguez is not only just a versatile striker, he's a great athlete. He's very athletic.
Oh, yeah.
He possesses a lot of fast twitch um, muscle fiber and ability, and that's part of the reason, the fight didn't play out how I saw it playing out. It did in a way, but I picked Yair because I thought that the Korean Zombie would be there to be hit. And I know that Yair has such an array of offense that he would really get off on the Korean Zombie, and I think that's exactly what you saw. He was landing back elbows, he was landing lead leg kicks, he was landing body kicks, he was even faking coming in with the side leg kick and then coming right up the middle to the face. He was throwing a lot of stuff that was landing on the Korean Zombie, and I saw that taking a toll, especially on his body. The Zombie was slowing down.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
He was landing on Yair, who I felt was getting the better of the exchanges. I guess the judges felt that the Zombie was getting the better of the exchanges based on the scoring, but I felt like Yair was landing heavy body and heavy front leg kicks that were really slowing him down. And I think it was, I don't know if it was the end of the second or the third when Yair hit him with the same back elbow that busted up his mouth. That's what busted open. It looked like his tooth came through his top lip. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
But
I did.
It looked like, and that was actually a reverse elbow from Yair. So not much different than the one that actually finished the fight. So to circle back around, I would say lucky, yes, but premeditated, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. And again, I want to be very careful here. Guys, you can tweet at me. Oh, F you, Phil, you're crazy. How dare how dare you take away from Yair's performance? I'm not trying to do that, okay? I'm really not. Because first and foremost, had that gone to a decision and Korean Zombie won by decision, I still would have been extremely impressed with Yair's performance. I thought
absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you heard me, and Twitter heard me. I was saying Korean Zombie's gonna cut through Yair like a hot knife through butter. I thought it was not going to be competitive at all, and it was extremely competitive.
Oh, it was so competitive. You know what I loved about that match? They weren't being light on their feet. They were standing in the middle, staring into each other's eyes, trying to pick each other apart with shots, and it was just so awesome. I was on the edge of my seat literally that whole fight, and when the fight ended, I was in disbelief. I wasn't even quite sure what happened. I saw, Twitter erupting. I saw the Korean Zombie lifeless on the mat, and I was just completely shocked. It's the reason we love this sport, because you really never know, and that's proof what is going to happen or how it's going to happen. It makes me feel a lot better about getting my picks wrong all the time.
Hey, you did. Look, you at least did better than me in the top two fights, which is all that really matters. This was not one of my better pick weeks. I will definitely say that, but we don't have to talk about that too much. But before we move on to Cowboy versus Perry, because that's got a lot on it, I did want to ask you this. So a lot of people are saying, Yair Zabit needs to be next. Who do you personally think Yair should fight next?
Well, there's two answers to this, because there's someone I want him to fight next and someone I think he should fight next.
Okay.
The person I think he will fight next is Jeremy Stephens. And I think that's an amazing matchup. Even though Stephens is coming off a loss, he's the guy, I believe, him or Cub Swanson, they're right in the same spot. Cub is a great opportunity for him as well. He hasn't had as much recent success, so I feel like Stephens maybe has a little bigger name at this point for Yair. It's a striking matchup. He won't have to wrestle. He can really showcase his abilities against a guy who was just near the top in Jeremy Stephens. I think it's a great matchup for Yair. What I want is I would love to see a crossroads changing of the guard fight, Yair Rodriguez versus Jose Aldo, at 145. I know there's been rumors that he's going to head up to 155, but I'm just not sure how realistic that is. I think for him to go up to the most competitive weight class in the world and lose some of the advantages that he has, I just don't see where the big draw is for him to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The impression I get about, Jose Aldo talking about moving up to 155, frankly, is he's having trouble making 45. It's a similar problem to Holloway. I think it's just age and having trouble making the weight. But I hear you completely.
But it may be the fact that he's lost to the champion twice is the real problem. What if there was a new champion there? Do you think he could make 145 again easily? I'm sure he would try.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with you. I think both of those, by the way, I would love to see Yair versus Jose Aldo. I would love to see him versus Stevens. And this will be the unpopular pick, but frankly, I would love to see a rematch with Korean Zombie. Sorry, I would love to see
There's no reason to have
Why?
a rematch.
Why is there no
rematch? Yair has been clear. He wants to fight up. Now he's past the Zombie. And that's the problem with the Zabit fight right now. People will think that he's afraid to fight him, but Zabit is just breaking the top 15. Yair just jumped, I think, 11 or 12. Yair's going to want to move up into that 6 to 9 range with his next victory. Why would he fight a super duper dangerous guy in Zabit who's ranked 3 slots behind him? To where if he beats him, he probably moves up 1 slot, if any. And if he loses to him, he drops back out of the 15. So there's really no reason to make that fight, even though that's, the super prospect fight. That could be potentially a title fight in 2 or 3 years. So there's no reason to burn that matchup. I think Yair is going to fight up. I think the Aldo fight is probably not realistic, so Jeremy Stevens is the pick for me. Okay.
Yeah, look, Yair's amazing. I give him full credit, and you full credit, because I thought you were, offline. I was texting the Fight Geek. I was saying, you're fucking crazy for choosing Yair. I can't believe it. What are you thinking? And you know what? Now I'm eating crow. So I'm eating the crow. I'm eating it. I'm eating crow. I'm eating crow feathers. It's probably not healthy. I might die from eating crow. I don't know what kind of weird rat diseases they have. But
they're not clean birds.
They're not clean birds, and I've been eating them. And they're not cooked, if you're asking. So all
right, so let's move on, though.
No, I want people to hear about the crow eating. Okay, I'm done. All right, so moving on to Cowboy versus Perry. Man, what'd you think?
Oh, well, it was over quick.
Yeah.
Expecting a little bit more. It felt like Perry showed a ton of respect. He really never got off. He threw a couple heavy shots that missed by a ton, and Cowboy sidestepped him and really just showed the veteran savvy of a Hall of Fame worthy guy versus someone who doesn't have a super duper high fight IQ. I think it played out, I picked Perry. I thought Perry would get his hands on him, and I thought he'd hurt his body with power shots, and I thought he'd KO him, but, Cowboy came in super driven. You could tell he took his camp real serious. He was at home. The baby factor, the grandma factor, and the fact that Cowboy Cerrone's always been a great submission artist. He's always been a great grappler. So if he's willing to take the fight where it goes and do that rather than stand with every single guy he fights, I think that would be a good path for him. And I think it was a great fight. I think it shows that Mike Perry he has all that energy, and it just seems to be displaced. He needs to really figure out how to harness that energy and focus, I think, is the big goal for him going forward.
No, absolutely. And, I thought that, honestly, I picked Perry to win this. So, again, I was 0-2 in the top 2 events of UFC Denver. I totally admit it. And I will say this. I think that this fight showed a lot about Platinum Perry, and not in a good way. And I don't mean to kick a guy while he's down, but I even wrote to him on Twitter, which, I got some flack for. Because I totally
What'd you
admit,
say though?
no, it was some Monday morning quarterbacking on my part. I admit that, but I said, man, what were you thinking taking him down? I mean, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but you must know not to take him down, and he took him down, and I don't understand it, and I think what a lot of it has to do. You mentioned low fight IQ for Perry. I completely agree with you, but there's a deeper problem, and the deeper problem is that Perry has a low fight IQ, and then it's combined with a really, really low human normal IQ. So that's the problem with Mike Perry, is that he's stupid in both ways. So
um,
I'm sorry, and sorry, Platinum fans who I'm offending. I'm just telling it like it is,
Hey,
okay?
I started out a huge Mike Platinum Perry fan.
So did
When he
I.
came out, I thought he was the second coming of Robbie Lawler, and he still might be, but
Yeah, no, he's no way.
he may not be. But
No
if you were to go
way.
back, I will contend, if you were to go back to the early portion of Robbie Lawler's career when he was a super prospect coming out of the Militich camp, he lost to Nick Diaz. He lost to a couple guys he shouldn't have lost to. He left the UFC, and it wasn't until later in his career when he learned how to harness his aggression and his energy and matured that he came back and became a champion. So there is a chance for Mike Perry to rally, but like you said, he may not have the same mental fortitude that Robbie Lawler has. So
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think that listen. If Platinum Perry fights for a belt ever, I will be shocked. Okay,
at this
shocked.
point, yeah, I would say so. Especially when you're looking at some of the other guys in that division who are super mature and super hungry. He has a lot of ground to make up to be in a title shot.
Yes, he does.
Lots of
A
ground.
lot. I would be remiss if I didn't mention before, and we're about to move on. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention two things. First of all, that classic picture of Cowboy as he is breaking Perry's arm, and he's looking straight at, I believe, Winklejohn. Is that correct? Was Winklejohn in the corner at that moment?
That's been rumored. I don't know exactly who he's looking at. Yes, it's an iconic picture, and yes, it's amazing.
Yeah. And did you see Winklejohn's response on Instagram, which was unprofessional to say the least?
The most unprofessional thing about Winklejohn is he listed all those fighters and he left Diego Sanchez off the list.
Dude, I thought the same thing. I was like,
Diego
what?
Sanchez is the only fighter standing up for that, Jim, and that's the guy you leave out of the shout-out?
I
Wow.
completely agree. I was like, yo, it's so funny you say that. I literally was like, are you gonna mention
Shout out
Diego?
Diego Sanchez, though. That's a real one.
Yeah, exactly. I just think, I think Jackson Wink is, man, it seems like sketchier and sketchier by the
I
day.
feel like street justice was served by Cowboy on Saturday night, so that was pretty awesome. I feel like karma, MMA karma came through there.
Yeah.
Cowboy deserved that win. They obviously moved on from Cowboy because he was an aging fighter. I mean, all of us can read between the lines. They took the younger guy who they thought had a more promising future, and all the money talk. Yeah, they probably did want to keep Platinum Perry because they assume he's going to be paying them for the next 5 to 10 years if he's successful. Where Cowboy Cerrone's got, let's be honest, he has probably 3 years max.
Oh, max. Yeah, I totally agree.
And
Yeah.
if he gets that Conor McGregor fight, he might get out of here sooner than 3 years. So we'll just segue right into that.
Great segue. So there have been rumors, if you guys don't know, I'm sure you do if you're listening to this podcast, but there have been some serious rumors about Conor McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone. According to Cerrone, he's just waiting on Conor for this fight. He's just waiting on
Such
Conor.
a what have you done for me lately business, because 6 months ago I would have thought that's the stupidest matchup you could have possibly come up with, but today I feel like that matchup makes so much sense.
Well, does it make sense for both fighters, or does it make sense for Cowboy?
Absolutely, it makes sense for both fighters because let's get Cowboy out of the way. He gets his red panty night that as a Hall of Famer he deserves. He's never cashed in as a champion.
He never was a champion.
Well, that's what I mean. He never cashed in as a champion, so he never hit that elite pay level. That's obvious.
Right.
He's one of the best fighters. He is the best fighter to never win a belt. I think that's pretty clear. So he's never got to that next pay tier. So giving him a fight with Conor McGregor would allow him to make $1 million plus on a fight and truly secure him for him and his family's future, which is great for someone like Cowboy, especially at this point in his career. And coming off a huge win in the spotlight like that, and the fact that he has a huge fan base already built in, is very helpful. Conor McGregor, on the other hand, he needs a matchup where he can look good. It's been a long time since Conor has looked good, and I think I was texting you the other day that they desperately need another highlight from Conor McGregor. All the highlights from Conor are 2+ years old. They need to put him in there with someone he can have a highlight against. And I feel like this could serve both purposes. Now, Cowboy Cerrone certainly is versatile and dangerous enough to beat Conor McGregor, especially if it goes to the ground. I feel like he could tap him out quite easily.
Well, that's what I'm so worried about, frankly.
But Donald Cerrone gets hit way too much, in my opinion, versus someone like Conor McGregor. Now, I'm not going to predict that fight now because it's not official, but I think Conor would salivate at the opportunity to strike with Donald Cerrone, especially considering when Conor made his infamous "that whole division is stuck in mud" comment when he was talking about becoming the double champ, he was directing that specifically at Donald Cerrone a couple years ago at that press conference, the infamous press conference where Nate Diaz circled back and said that you already punked the whole 155-pound division, who he was also referring to Donald Cerrone. So there's a lot of symmetry to that match. These guys have actually had a little beef in the past. So, yes, I love the matchup. I think it is a great matchup if it were to happen. And I think it sells a ton on pay-per-view.
Okay. So you're saying in this case, I just want to understand, in this case, Cerrone versus McGregor would be the main event of a pay-per-view. I think we can agree that McGregor can headline a pay-per-view for a non-title
fight.
Cerrone
he just co-headlined a Fox card, so he just had many, many eyes on him. Cowboy Cerrone's been around for a long time. They could make this, they could bill it, the winningest fighter ever returns to his natural weight class to fight Conor McGregor. There's a lot of sales points there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's where I'm going to respectfully disagree. Well, you know what? Fuck that. Not respectfully. I'm going to disrespectfully disagree with you.
Here we go.
It's time for some disrespect, everyone. Phil the MMA dude.
Split decision. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to disrespectfully disagree. God, that's too corny. Okay. Dropping that.
That was a double negative. You're back to respecting.
I know. Just listen. I'm off. Let's just move on. Okay, so this is what I think. I think that Conor should not take that fight. I know that that's a bit of a controversial opinion. If I'm Conor's camp, do not take the Cowboy fight. Here's why. Everything to lose, very little to gain. You beat Cowboy, so what? People will say aging star. But I think the Cowboy isn't stupid. I don't think he's going to stand with Conor. I think he's going to try to take him down nonstop. If he's smart, that's what he'll do. And
I would say that Conor's a much more... I mean, you look at the guys who have beat Cowboy, and they're guys who put pressure on him and hit hard. You look at a guy like Till. Now, Till's a lot bigger than Conor, but They do have a similar striking style, the way that they like to stand sideways, and they're power strikers. So I think the guys like that, and that is exactly what Conor is. And you know what's also interesting? If Cowboy didn't want to return to 155, this matchup also works at 170 and doesn't affect Conor standing in the lightweight division as usual. So this fight could actually take place either or.
No, Conor. Conor should not do that. He should not take this at 170. That would be much worse.
But don't you think that's an interesting side note, that this fight could actually be at either or, which makes it even more of a possibility in my opinion?
Absolutely. I mean, this is okay. So I think that there's been a very big question, and we'll move on soon. I think there's been a big question of what to do with Conor next, and it's a good question because we don't know exactly what his level's at right now. And
Conor has to win his next fight.
He has to win his next fight. I completely
agree. That's the thing. If he were to lose to Donald Cerrone, that would pretty much take the shine off of Conor McGregor as, the self-proclaimed king. He would have been beaten by a guy, who's a little older, yada, yada. Donald Cerrone still possesses the ability to beat him, no doubt, but I think that, public perception is that Conor should be, miles past an aging guy like Donald Cerrone.
Yeah, definitely. And so my 2 cents on who Conor should fight next, because I know there's been a big question. What do you do with Conor? He can't lose the next one. This is what I think you should do. I think that the Cowboy fight frankly, it's just a little too dangerous. Like you said, he can't lose the next fight. What I think he should do, and I think it's a little bit of a no-brainer here, hiding in plain sight, is you make McGregor Diaz 3 at lightweight. I want to stress that, at
I
155.
can get on board with that.
Because the thing is, I know everyone's going to say, "Oh, well, he could lose to Diaz easily." Well, at welterweight,
That's
sure.
the only way we'll ever see Nate Diaz again, more than likely.
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
So the UFC actually kills two birds with one stone there, because Diaz ain't coming back for anybody but Conor. I think that's pretty clear.
Yep.
I think Tony versus Dustin Poirier's, I don't know what's going on.
No, Tony Khabib. Wait, why not Tony? Khabib needs to fight the number one contender.
Agreed. But let's not get sidetracked. Let's circle back
absolutely.
now. We're on Conor Cowboy, potentially.
And I like Conor Diaz 3 at lightweight more. I think that's the way. I mean, that fight. Talk about a non-title fight that will do numbers.
I respectfully disagree with you there, because I feel like Conor could lose 3 in a row and still circle back around and have Diaz 3 and sell 1.5 million on a 3-fight winning streak. So that's the ace in the pocket for Conor. His last fight of his career should be Nate Diaz, in my opinion.
Interesting. So you think
the fact is, didn't Conor say he signed a 6-fight deal?
Yeah, but we all know.
But listen, if that's true,
yeah,
a fight like Donald Cerrone makes perfect sense, because who the hell is he going to fight for 6 fights?
You make it. No, that's totally true. He signed for 6 fights, but that means nothing, because he can walk away at any second. He can walk away at any moment.
But if he truly intends to fight 6 more times, that means the likelihood of taking Donald Cerrone on is very high. That means Diaz trilogy is happening for sure. That leaves 4 other fights. He's hoping a rematch with Khabib is 1. That's 3 fights. That's 3 open fights for Conor, hypothetically, within this deal. I think Cerrone is well within that reach.
Yeah, but we all know that, for every fight that Conor does going forward, he's going to renegotiate that contract anyway, right? So what is that 6-fight
deal? Unless his deal's really good.
Well.
Already.
Well.
I mean, basically, Conor has his liquor on the mat as a sponsor. That's how he's getting paid nowadays.
Right. No, and I agree. And I think if I'm Conor,
that's happening no matter who he's fighting against.
So let me ask you this, and then we'll move on. The final question on Conor Cowboy. Do you think that Conor versus Cowboy at lightweight is less risky for Conor than Diaz 3 at lightweight? I want to stress.
Absolutely.
Really? Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that, first of all, Cowboy Cerrone does not possess the chin that Nate Diaz does.
Well, that's for sure.
Second of all, Cowboy Cerrone has shown throughout his career that he has a lot of anxiety towards fights. He has a hard time calming down. He doesn't like it when people are really aggressive and talk a lot of mess to him. Conor McGregor is going to be coming in hot. He's going to be coming in real hot on Cerrone. He's not just the way Nate Diaz did. He's going to be in his face. He's going to be disrespecting him. And that doesn't play well to Cowboy. Now, I know he's a little bit older, but his tendencies say he doesn't like ultra-aggressive guys. Conor obviously knows that. Conor knows that Nate Diaz, smacked Cowboy around. And Nate Diaz has the mental up on Conor. He basically walks around and says he beat Conor twice, which
that
pretty
didn't
much
happen.
Justifiable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He lost the second one. But
so my point being is Conor would still have the mental edge on Cowboy, in my opinion, whereas Conor versus Nate, I believe, possesses that mental edge, because in a street fight to the death, Conor has never gotten over on Nate, where Nate's already taken him out once.
I know, but remember, you're talking about 170. You're talking about 170.
Huh?
You're talking about them fighting at 170.
But we're also talking about an old McGregor, because the last version of McGregor we saw was a pretty sloppy version.
Yeah. I mean,
obviously he was having to defend the takedown, and he was on the ground, and he was defending, and his arms were blown out, but his striking was not nearly what we've grown accustomed to. So there's a lot of intrigue there, but we could go for days. I'm sure we'll hear more about what Conor, Cowboy, and Nate are doing in the coming weeks for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so
let's circle back to UFC Denver. Just had a couple call-outs. We'll get your opinion on some of them. Macy Barber, the 20-year-old female fighter making her debut at UFC Denver,
she's
absolutely
great.
Put on a show.
She's great.
She's high pressure. She's intense. She's trying to make a name for herself. She's skilled. Big fan of hers. One to watch going forward.
She's special. I think she's special.
On Saturday night, I compared her to a young Rory McDonald as a prospect. Do you remember when Rory was like the 18, 19-year-old kid who was super mature beyond his years, fighting guys who are older than him?
Yeah.
She reminds me a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how she progresses. She certainly is a super prospect. So we can move on from there. Let's check out what's going on this weekend at UFC Argentina.
Okay.
Not the deepest card we've ever seen, but we can touch on the top.
No, I think it's the deepest. I think it's the deepest card that we have ever seen. No, I'm being a jerk. I'm just being a jerk. No.
All right. So what do you think on the main event? It's Neil Magny versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Go. Oh, you're sleeping already?
Oh, sorry. Wait. What was that? Huh? What was that? Oh, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Neil Magny. Oh, yeah. Hang on. Does everyone like that? Everyone like my disgusting nasal sounds? I'm sure that'll get us.
So disrespectful of the sport and the combatants.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just got to say it out loud here, guys. Look, that is a horrible main event. I mean, come on. I mean, Neil Magny, Santiago. I mean, come on, guys. But no, look. Here's my question to you on that. Putting aside my biased opinion on how trash card, whatever. But putting that aside, I don't see how Neil Magny has a path to victory. I just don't. I think that this is Santiago all day, every day. I do not know how Neil Magny's going to win this fight.
And I know I'm supposed to disagree with you, but I don't. I firmly don't see a path to victory. If you look at the kinds of guys that give Magny trouble, they're kind of, Rafael dos Anjos, Lorenz Larkin, guys who are fast twitch, who are explosive, who are versatile. I think that's exactly what he's facing in Ponzinibbio. I think Ponzinibbio is arguably one of the more underrated guys on the whole roster. Feel like he's very, very dangerous, very well-rounded, hits hard. Looking at his record right now, he's on a 6-fight winning streak. He's won 8 out of 10 in the UFC, and he's finished guys like Court McGee, Gunnar Nelson, and his most recent victory is a unanimous decision over Mike Perry. So I'm definitely leaning Santiago Ponzinibbio, and I'm going to go by a second-round stoppage in this one.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me. I'm trying to think if I have if I'm trying to pick a different round here. Second round sounds about right. Maybe third here, but I just don't see Neil Magny getting into championship rounds. That's for sure.
No, there's too much power striking coming from Ponzinibbio. I think Magny will try to keep his distance, but I think Ponzinibbio will close the distance, land heavy stuff, and turn the lights off. That's my prediction on that one.
Yep. I completely agree with you.
We'll touch on the co-main, too. It's Ricardo Lamas versus Darren Elkins. Very tough matchup to pick. Two wrestlers, but different builds, different styles. Ricardo Lamas is more of a power puncher / wrestler, whereas Darren Elkins is more of just a grinder. Do you have an opinion in this fight?
Yeah, actually, first and foremost, I like this fight so much more than the main event. It's not even funny. Like, this is way more interesting.
It's definitely a better matchup, I feel like.
Yeah, I think this is going to be... Okay, first and foremost, I'm calling it right now. This is going to be fight of the night on that card.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that these are two guys who are not afraid to throw down. And you know what? I was looking at the odds. Let me see if I can pull them up real quick, but I can pull them up. All right. So according to my bookie, Darren Darren Elkins is a plus 170 dog. Ricardo Lamas minus 200 favorite.
Wow.
I know. I thought that was a little disrespectful to Elkins. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm taking Elkins in this fight.
I am too, man. I'm too.
If you look at the common opponents, Elkins beat Bektik, even though it was a comeback, and Lamas lost to Bektik. The only person that Elkins has lost to in the last 3 years is Alexander Volkanovski, who some people consider a future title contender. So Elkins has been very good. He's won 6 out of his last 7. He's with Team Alpha Male. He's damn near impossible to get out of there. So yeah, Ricardo Lamas is probably the more athletic, gifted fighter, but I just think that Darren Elkins will wear on him. He'll wear him down, and I think Darren Elkins by decision.
Darn it, I hate when we agree so much. I like that pick, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Darren Elkins by third round stoppage.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So okay.
I mean, he's the dog there, so I mean, what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
If you like the matchup, you like the matchup. So, on the rest of the card, I'm just gonna call out a couple names. Another potential fight of the night contender, one of my personal favorites, Cynthia Calvillo is coming back. Women's strawweight fight versus Poliana Botello. Sleeper fight on the card. Both girls like to scrap. I'm a big fan of both. Khalil Roundtree makes his return at light heavyweight. He just knocked out Gokhan Saki in his last performance. Was very impressive. Surprised me. Fighting a somewhat unknown Johnny Walker. Another guy to keep an eye on is Khalil Roundtree Jr.
Absolutely.
And last fight I'm going to call out is Alexandre Pantoja versus Olka Sasaki. I feel like that's a really fun fight potentially. Both guys are well-rounded, good athletes, fast twitch, can be standing or on the ground.
And speaking of that exact fight, I'm trying to look it up right now, but I don't know if you're aware, the UFC just ruined their website. So I'm trying to find it here. What weight is that at? Because
it says flyweight.
So that is a flyweight fight. Okay, that's what I thought. So it is okay, that's weird. The whole flyweight thing is very weird, but that's a subject for a different time.
Right.
So it is at flyweight. Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if it was at bantamweight.
At least for the time being, I guess, until TJ fights Henry, and then we'll figure out the fate of the 125 division, right?
Right. Exactly. Okay, great. Well, I think like I mentioned at the beginning of this show, we had the best questions ever by far. I think by far.
Yes, we did.
By far.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. So let's get to some fan questions. I'll start off, and we can switch off here. But the first one that I got that I thought was a great question was from Hanzi MMA is normal. That's at HANZI MMA. And he asked, do you feel that Dana has a tendency to throw his upcoming stars such as Till, Israel, Zabit into the wolves too quickly? I thought that was a great question, and I'll let you start that one off. What do you think on that one?
It is a great question. It's a very astute observation, if I may say so myself. But yes, I would agree that, especially lately, I think back in the earlier years of the UFC, Dana White had a tendency to be a little slower with his prospect. I think there was like an unwritten rule that you had to be 10-0 in a regional promotion before you'd even get a shot in the UFC back in the day. So yeah, I'd say as the years have progressed, I think the Dana and the promotion has got impatient trying to develop stars and look for pay-per-view draws. Till is a great example. I feel like they shoved Darren Till right down our throat. Didn't even let us, decide for ourselves if we thought he was a great fighter. They told us he was a great fighter, just like with Francis Ngannou.
Yep.
They were so desperately trying to sell those fighters to us. And the only way you can sell them to us is to have them beat legitimate fighters. So I think a lot of times these prospects are getting rushed a little too quickly. I don't think there's a gradual build. But
Right.
again, the UFC is the top organization in the world. The talent is so good, it's really hard to build a star and build talent and give them somewhat, air quotes, easy fights, yada yada. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think that it's actually a more difficult question to answer than it appears on its face because, my first thought is, well, definitely, this is the WME, IMG era. They're looking for stars. They're desperate for stars. You saw that at UFC 228 when they definitely were guilty of rushing Till into that Tyron Woodley fight. We all know how that went. So there's no question that Till was definitely moved too quickly, but here's where I'm getting a little hesitant. Then you see, Izzy Adesanya, and I love Last Stylebender. I mean, can I just say, I love this kid. I love what he does. I love his whole game. I love how he fights. I love his whole thing, his confidence. I know it rubs some people the wrong way. I think it's great. And then you see him go, get put up against, Derek Brunson. And I actually thought, I was very concerned that Israel could lose that fight. And what does he do? He goes and he sleeps this guy in the first round. So
I was not concerned about that. If you go back to my Twitter feed, I think that I even said Brunson has a tendency to serve his chin up on a platter. And I think he did that to a T. That guy was, he has
that's
a horrible.
Harsh. That's a little harsh, no?
What? He was getting ragdolled. He was dead on his feet for the last 20 seconds of that fight. He was just getting smacked around.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the last 20 seconds, I agree. But for much of the first round, he was out wrestling Israel.
Well, and for much of the first round, he was very tentative on the feet in a strange sideways stance, doing everything he possibly could not to engage a striking match. So that was out of his realm right away. The guy likes to throw. So yep. I feel like, not to disagree with you, I just feel like that was a tailor-made matchup for someone like Israel Adesanya, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, right. No, I think that's a fair point, and so
that one is not as egregious as throwing Darren Till to Tyron Woodley when he's beat one or two named guys in his career.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I hear you. So then, what if you were to throw, say, Zabit to Jose Aldo?
Yeah, that probably, I mean, I don't know. Zabit has a mystique around him. We really haven't seen enough of him versus high quality. Yeah, that'd probably be too much for him considering it's 15 versus 2 or 3. The next fight for Zabit, someone who can, contend with his wrestling. Like, Josh Emmett might be a solid fight for Zabit. A guy ranked in the top 10.
That's the fight to make. That's the fight.
Has knockout power with wrestling, so he can strike and he can wrestle. A guy that really challenges Zabit. He's coming off a loss, but he's in the top 10. That's a solid fight for him. I don't know. I don't think they've rushed Zabit yet, but I do think that they have in the past rushed guys, especially, for instance, Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt was a super prospect who was knocking everybody out. But he progressed very quickly.
Well, he's more confusing. He was champ.
Well, to the point where he got his title shots, both of his title shots in a year, and now he's pretty much irrelevant. That's because the UFC was rushing him into that rematch.
Yep.
As a young guy. He's still super young. Cody Garbrandt is, what is he? I don't even know off the top. Is he 26 years old or something like that?
26, 27, around that area.
If you were cultivating his career and building him, he might not have even fought for a belt yet in a realistic gradual build.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So he was certainly rushed. I think you see a lot of especially guys like Sage, Paige Van Zandt, these marketable stars that they put in over their head, and then they don't fare as well as true superstars need to. So, anyways.
No, I agree.
Long-winded.
So do you have a question? Do you have another question lined up? If not, I can go to the next one that I got.
Yeah, go ahead to your next one. I'm looking at something.
Great. Okay, so I got this from Ali, who is a great follow, everyone. This is at Ali Ra. That's OLIRAHH. Ali. What's up, Ali? He said, what are your thoughts on super fights and the direction it is taking in the UFC? And if I could start this one out, Fight Geek, if you don't mind,
okay.
Here's my initial thoughts on it. The truth is, I actually don't mind super fights in general. And to be clear, there's a big. Some people don't understand exactly what super fights are, and I don't mean that in some condescending way. But let me be clear what super fights are. Super fight means champion of one division versus champion of another division. So
Okay.
Woodley Covington, interim belt versus champ.
That
That
is
is not.
not a
That is
super
not a
fight.
super fight. Thank you. That is not a super fight. And McGregor Khabib, even though it was awesome, that's not a super fight. Because
I disagree there.
oh god. Okay.
Historically,
We
that
don't want
is
to
a
get
super fight.
sidetracked into a million.
That's definitely a super fight.
No,
But go
it
ahead.
wasn't. Because Conor
It did
didn't hold a
2.4
belt.
million pay-per-view buys. It's the
That's
number
not
one
what that.
card.
That's not what super fight means, though. It doesn't mean how many pay-per-views you get.
It kind of does.
It means champion. It's champion of one division versus champion of another division.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
99% of the time that is case in point, I guess you would say.
Okay, well, in any case, that's how I'm interpreting the question. I feel strongly
Okay.
that super fights mean champ versus champ. Like, for example, UFC 226, DC versus Miocic. That was definitely a super fight. We're seeing another super fight at UFC 232 with Cyborg Nunez. That's a definite super fight. So that's how I'm interpreting it. And, here's my thoughts on that. I think that super fights are fine as long as they are limited. And the concern here is that I haven't.
We're oversaturated with super
Yes.
fights right now, so they're a lot less super than they used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I was gonna say, and this is my last point on it. The biggest argument, in my opinion, against super fights is this Dillashaw Cejudo super fight coming up at 233. I am not at all a fan of this fight. And it's for two reasons. Number one, Cejudo just won the flyweight belt in a decision, in a very tight decision. I think he hardly should be, getting a super fight. And more importantly, the second reason, TJ Dillashaw has a murderer's row at bantamweight waiting for him. Cough, cough, mostly Marlon Moraes, cough, cough. And, he's got to do something about that. He's got to fight the guys in his division. And this is where you see the super fights really starting to kind of, slow down the sport and hold up the divisions, is something like Cejudo Dillashaw. Because let's be honest, man, Cejudo ain't winning that fight. Sorry, I don't care if it's at 125. I don't care if it's at 120. I don't care if it's at 115. Cejudo ain't beating Dillashaw. So let's just get that out of the way. And it damages the division because bantamweight's hot right now. And I just really strongly think that Marlon deserves that shot.
Oh, me too. I would love to see Marlon versus TJ more. I agree with you. I think TJ, first of all, TJ has proven much more to be an elite fighter than Cejudo has.
Definitely.
Cejudo's win is a close split decision win over DJ. He has a clear loss to DJ prior. And even leading up to his title shot, it's not like he strung together 8 to 10 victories. The guy is a developing prospect just a few years ago. He lost a close fight to Joseph Benavidez. He has the clear loss to DJ. And then his only claim to fame is a close split decision victory over DJ. So, yeah, I don't really feel like that's the most super fight. I think it's complete overkill. I think it's just a way to market it to us, and I certainly feel like TJ is the huge favorite there. So I don't know if I helped answer that question or anything, but I got another question if we're ready to move on.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, Ali, is my thoughts on the super fights is they're oversaturating them. I'm fine with them once a year. I don't want them more than once a year. They're obviously doing a lot more than once a year now. And so I think that is not a good thing. I think that's hurting the brand. But if you keep it to once a year, I'm all good with the super fights. Okay, moving on. Your question.
All right, cool. So this one's from DP. His handle is at ptown789. So at ptown789 asks, who does Tyron Woodley have to beat to finally be put in the GOAT conversation or discussion? Excuse me. I love this question. That's why I went back and circled around and found it. So I'll let you start off. Who does Woodley have to beat, or what is his path to being considered the greatest of all time?
Well, The greatest or one of the greatest? Big difference.
In the discussion as a GOAT. So to be considered a top 10 fighter of all time. What is his career path from here on out?
You want my honest opinion? He's already top 10 all time. I don't care what the haters say. I don't care what the haters say.
That's a lot of respect right there.
He's got four title defenses at welterweight, okay? That's no joke. It's really not. He's got 4 title defenses. I do think he needs a few more before he should start. I know that he kind of threw out moving up to middleweight and taking on Whitaker, which frankly, if Whitaker's still, if Whitaker keeps winning in his middleweight champ, I would love to see that fight down the line, but it's a little premature. He's obviously got to fight Colby Covington. I mean, that fight must happen. It must. But I don't see, who else is there immediately in the welterweight picture to take on Woodley? You're going to, Usman, right? Usman, he doesn't have anything for Woodley. I don't believe for a second that he's got anything for Woodley. I think Colby's got a better chance than Usman does. And I don't think
either of those fights do anything for his legacy. If I were to spin this, the only way for Woodley to be considered in the GOAT conversation would be to present a 2-belt opportunity to Khabib and then beat Khabib and then finally entice George St. Pierre to come back and fight him for the clear title of the greatest welterweight to ever live. If he were to win those 2 fights, Tyron Woodley would be in the short list of the greatest fighters of all time, certainly the greatest welterweight of all time. So I think both of those are small possibilities. I've been really disappointed in George, the fact that he really is showing no interest to fight Woodley.
Well, yeah, because he's a cherry picker.
Complete ducking. Everybody else says Conor's ducking, this person's ducking, everybody's ducking, but George St. Pierre's not ducking. He's letting another guy rule his division, and he's not even going to come back and challenge for it. I don't understand this at all. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Never mind. So my path, my opinion is, if he could somehow fight Khabib and GSP, beat them both, I think that would solidify him as a perennial GOAT contender.
I totally agree. I mean, I think if he were to beat those two, you would almost have to put him at number 1.
He's top
no?
3 to 5 for sure.
I mean, I've got him at number 10 or number 9 right now, straight up.
That's a long list to get into. But
I know it's not popular. I know everyone loves to hate Woodley. I get it.
So at this point, do you think he's the second greatest welterweight of all time? Or do you think Matt Hughes is still ahead of him?
Yeah, that's what I was hesitating on. Second or third.
So
Definitely
he's
in the
top
3.
3 welterweight of all time today, right?
Definitely in the top 3. Definitely. Maybe Hughes. Okay. You might have to give Matt Hughes that second.
Well, then you look at guys like Carlos Condit when he was in his prime.
Yeah, no.
Because I don't know if Tyron Woodley actually beat a prime Condit. Didn't Condit blow his ACL out or something? It was a knee injury. I don't think Woodley beat him cleanly. Anyways.
Yeah, there's always injuries. That's part of the sport, though, right?
Of course.
There's always going to be injuries. I think that, first of all, real quick, I'll say this. First of all, I consider George St. Pierre to be the greatest MMA fighter of all time, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, related to that, I think GSP has become an expert cherry picker.
Absolutely.
He's Mr. Cherry Pick. He likes to look at, what is the easiest fight that I can do?
I think he saw Conor cherry picking all his opponents while he was retired, and he said, we're doing this now? I can come back and do that.
You cut off my impression of his stupid voice, but that's okay. I've been working on it. I've been working on it for this podcast. That's why there's been a delay, guys. I was working on my GSP.
Well, the floor is yours if you want to.
No.
All right, next question. I got another good one. It's from Meep MMA. That's at MEEP MMA. He's always talking with us on Twitter and giving us good stuff. So here's a good question. He says we see a lot of people jumping to one championship and likely more to follow. Who will be the next fighter to jump ship? Go ahead.
Whew, I love that question.
Great question.
Now, I wish I had an easy answer. On that one. But want my guess? Sage Northcutt. Sage effing Northcutt.
Well, Sage is already I think we should keep him out of the discussion because
Why?
he's already been reported as being wined and dined by ONE FC. So
that doesn't mean he's gonna go.
Let's say the person who has not been linked to them, the next person that's not linked to them, because Sage has obviously been linked to them. He went there last weekend for their event as like a guest. Come on, be creative, Phil.
Oh gosh.
Fine, I'll go ahead and jump in. I think Cody Garbrandt is a possibility due to the fact that his path to the title is long. Right now, he's in a kind of a state of rigor mortis because his division has been taken from him. He may be a guy who, especially the fact, listen to this. What if he were to go to one, cut down to 125, and we got Cody versus DJ in one? The fight
Bring it
that
on,
those two
baby.
always wanted. Those two always wanted that fight.
Yeah, you know, the problem is it might be too late because I know for a fact that ONE FC is doing they're doing a Grand Prix at flyweight, and I think that the field is already picked. Now I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that the field is already set for that Grand Prix.
Well, that's news to me. I was getting excited about a potential Cody versus DJ in one. I mean, that could be down the road. Cody, we don't know when Cody's going to fight again. He's been radio silent. He's on the Ronda Rousey defeat plan right now.
Yeah, I know.
Until we hear from Cody Garbrandt, I'm just assuming he's moved on and he's raising his kid right now because he's nowhere to be seen.
All right, so want my okay? I've had a moment
Jimmy
to think
Rivera
about it.
has been calling out Cody Garbrandt for months to literally crickets.
Yeah. Okay. So here, I've had a moment to think. Here's my guess on who goes next to ONE FC, and it's not Cody. Ready?
Yep.
Stipe Miocic.
Ooh, wow.
Because Stipe. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Minorly disgruntled guy.
Minorly, majorly.
Majorly. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. No, I think you know. I was listening to him on a few different MMA shows the other week. And to say that Stipe is pissed is an understatement. And you can understand a lot of his frustration. I think that he.
Yeah, if you're a principled individual, you probably don't like your employer just raking you over the coals every chance they get.
Yeah, and I totally get why he's so frustrated. He's defended the heavyweight belt more than anyone else, and I see him looking to jump ship. Now, he may go to Bellator. But I think he could be the next one to go.
I think he'd like his chances versus Brandon Vera in one.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my
one more that came to the top of my head is, I would say someone like Cyborg, could end up there because they've shown that they're super versatile. They also have they do Muay Thai fights. They do different types of combat. So, maybe Cyborg's a possibility for that too. So
yeah.
All right, moving on. Got another one. Unsolicited fight picks. His handle is @CombativeViews. Always talking with us. A good follower.
Yeah, I love that guy.
So his question is: from what we've seen, who do you think will be the first Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series fighter to be a champ or fight for a championship, or will there be one? Go ahead. I love this question.
Oh, I love this question too, and I've got an answer. Ready?
Nice.
People aren't going to like it, though.
You better not say my answer.
Greg Hardy.
Ooh! To be honest with you, when I was looking over the names, he stuck out. But I'm not going to go with that.
Oh.
You want to give a reason? Go ahead.
I can give a reason. Choice. Look, I'm not here to get into the Greg Hardy controversy. We all know about what he's done and how inexcusable it is. But the UFC is clearly playing ball with him. That's not up for debate. And what I have seen from his fights is utter and total domination. Now, I understand he's fighting a bunch of cans, arguably. But this guy is a special athlete. Again, I'm not trying to touch anything on his horrendous personal behavior, but to say that this guy isn't going to go someplace in the heavyweight division is crazy. It's just crazy. So I don't see him winning a UFC belt, but I definitely see him fighting for one. And
so you're saying if Derek Lewis can fight for a heavyweight belt, you can see Greg Hardy fighting for a heavyweight belt.
Exactly.
Athletically.
Exactly. And by the way, I'm just going to put this in there. I like Greg Hardy over Lewis.
In a fight today?
In a fight today, I like Hardy.
No, come on.
I know it's controversial.
Ring time. Derek Lewis has like 25, 30 fights. Greg Hardy has like 6. No, he would.
Hardy punches like a rocket.
All right, you're done. So your pick's Hardy.
I picked Hardy. Go. Who's your pick?
I'm gonna go with Antonina Shevchenko. She fights anywhere from 115 to 135. She's 39-1 as a kickboxer. I'm a huge Shevchenko fan. Both of the girls. I think she's uber talented. I do think she will shoot up to the top of those divisions. I'm not positive which one she'll be competing in. Probably whichever one her sister's not. So that puts her at 135. I'm not sure she'll ever win a belt, but I could certainly see her being the type to make it there. So yeah, Antonina Shevchenko was my pick on that question.
Okay. Not a bad answer. The one thing I'll say is that when and again, I won't pretend that I remember her fight perfectly on Tuesday Night Contenders, but I do recall her having at least some trouble in that fight. I mean, it went. I
don't know if it was trouble or if it was just not super impressive. I'm pretty sure she handled it. A win's a win.
Yeah.
Also, Macy Barber, I think we already talked about. I think we both probably figure her to play into a championship at some point.
Yeah.
Like I said, I see her as a future Rory McDonald type. He eventually was a prospect that turned into a title contender, so I see her in the same light. So there's a couple names on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, man, so many good questions. We're running out of time.
Keep them coming.
Okay, so this one is from Anthony O'Brien, and that's at Elite Deadshot. I like that name, at Elite Deadshot. And he's saying, okay, Conor versus Dustin looked to be the fight for both guys going off the rankings, but rumors of Cowboy versus Conor look to be likely. So, who do you think Dustin should fight when ready? I will let you start this one off. I've definitely got someone in mind, but you start this one off. Take it away.
That's such a tough one because Dustin's already there. It's hard for me to say he should even take a fight. I think Dustin Poirier should fight. I mean, it's hard to say. So, such a hard question. We don't know what the suspension will be with Khabib, so that really only leaves a true number one contender fight versus Tony Ferguson.
Yep, and that's exactly who I was going to say as well, because I think that, let's be real, I mean, Khabib is going to get, and I've looked into this a little bit, so I'm not just speaking entirely out of my ass here. Khabib's going to get at least a 6-month suspension. Granted, that's not that long. I am hearing more and more rumors that it's going to be a little stricter than that. Possibly 9 months and possibly up to 12. I don't think it'll be more than 12 months, but I think it's going to be at least 6, and my guess is 9. So I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see a Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson fight, and frankly, I could not be more excited. What do you think of that fight?
Absolutely. I mean, both of the guys are in the same exact position. They both deserve a title shot.
Yep.
They basically both deserve a title shot. So it's like they can either sit out and wait and play that game, or they can just put it on the line. I think I mentioned last episode I felt like both of those guys were the type of fighters that would not be willing to sit out too long if there was a suspension. I think that fight determines who is the clear number one contender without a shadow of a doubt. So that puts a couple fights out in front of you. And that also circles back and allows for Conor to fight Cowboy without real implications. You know what I mean? He's more than 2 fights away from the belt no matter what.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's so hard to say with Conor. He's such a rule breaker just because of
that's true.
The
draw.
You
always say with trepidation what he'll be doing.
Right. Okay, so do you have a question or should I go next?
Yeah, I got another one from
Go ahead.
Ben at Ben Schofield 99. He said, "Do you think they should move Yoel Romero's fight in January to light heavyweight matchup and put him against Anthony Smith for the next shot at the title? Sounds like a great idea to me, considering light heavyweight division needs something other than Jones Gustafson." So he's proposing Lionheart versus Romero for a number one contender spot to fight the winner of Gus versus Jones. What do you think?
So I was listening to Ariel Helwani's MMA show, and I was listening to Yoel on it the other day on Monday, and Yoel sounds like he has really thought through the light heavyweight move, and he has had some second thoughts to say the least. He brushed aside moving up to light heavyweight. He sounds not interested at all in light heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there. I feel like his strengths and his advantages go away at light heavyweight.
Yep.
So I don't see what the big advantage for him to move up and fight bigger guys and lose all of his advantages. He's already a guy, I mean, he'll be extremely explosive and quick for a light heavyweight, but he'll be fighting much bigger men. And he already has cardio issues, so big guys leaning on him, dealing with bigger guys for longer portions of time. I just don't see it being a great fit for Yoel. But then again, Anthony Smith was a 185er. Who went up to 205 and has looked better than ever. So it's like, would you get a better than ever version of Yoel? That is the question.
I don't have their stats pulled up on exact height and exact reach, but it's my understanding that Yoel is a considerably smaller man than Anthony. Is that correct, generally speaking? I don't have this pulled up.
Find out for you right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that Yoel's short for his weight class, let alone the weight class above.
Exactly. So, yeah, and listening to him on Monday doing interviews, he really sounded like he has zero interest in light heavyweight right now. Possibly later down the line, maybe if Whitaker keeps winning, but I just don't see that happening right now. And, look, I mean, I'm biased. You know how I feel about Anthony Lionheart Smith. He's one of my absolute favorites right now.
So their numbers, Anthony Smith is 6'4".
Yep.
Yoel is listed at 5'11".
Mm-hmm.
Anthony's reach is 76 inches, and Yoel's reach is at 73.5 inches. So he'd be giving up 4 inches in height. He'd be giving up 2.5 inches in reach, and he'd be carrying extra mass, which would also affect his notorious cardio. So, yeah, I just don't see that being a great option for Romero. Obviously, it's a great fantasy match to think about, But I just don't see that as being a realistic possibility for Yoel.
No, personally. I agree. And actually, that reach advantage is Anthony's reach advantage is considerably less than I thought, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. And that's you would think he'd have a little longer reach than that, but he is coming up from 185. So, again.
Yep, I totally agree.
All right, got another one here from Mr. B at Mr. B 1986.
Love that guy. What up, Mr. B?
What up? With news of Askren fighting Lawler, do you think Ben will move up weight if he's successful in this and future fights in the welterweight division? I'll go first. No, Ben Askren's not going to be moving up in weight. The only thing Ben Askren will be doing is fighting at 165 if it presents itself, in my opinion. I think Ben Askren is perfectly fine having 3 to 4 fights in the UFC to prove this whole time that he's a world-class fighter. I don't think he needs the belt. I think he wants Woodley to stay the belt, and he'd like to climb to 2 or 3 in the weight class, and I think that's perfectly fine for him. I think the fact that he took Robbie Lawler first shows that he truly respects Lawler, and he feels like Lawler's a true test. A lot of people give Askren a hard time because of the way he presents himself. But he's a pretty straight shooter. He's a wrestler. He's not afraid of anyone. You know what I mean? He's kind of like a Justin Gaethje to me. He's here. He's undefeated. He wants to know. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out real quick with Robbie Lawler because let's say we threw him in there with someone like Darren Till, and he gets Darren Till to the ground, and Darren Till doesn't put up much of a fight, and he just kind of whimpers out, similar to what he did to Woodley.
Mm-hmm.
A guy like Askren is not going to get his rocks off on that. Where if he goes and fights a former champion, someone who's known as one of the most grisly veterans and brawlers of all time, it's a veteran. That's a name. That's a real challenge for someone like Ben Askren. That's something he can get himself up for. He just watched his teammate spank Till. That's what I don't understand. Everyone was like, Till. I'm like, his teammate, who he trains with all the time, literally outclassed Till every second of that fight. Did he not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So why? Yeah. I mean, the only reason Ben Askren was asking for that fight in the first place was almost trolling Till, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, yeah, I think that Ben Askren will win. I don't know if he'll win that fight, but I think he'll stay in the welterweight division. I don't see him going up. The only way I see him changing divisions again is if 165 title belt presents itself. That's where I'm at on that. I don't think he's a guy who would fare very well at 185 at all.
Yeah. No, it's hard to disagree with that. I mean, I personally, I think Ben is a very good fighter. Do I think he's a great fighter? Not right now. Let's see.
Gotta prove it.
Yeah, he's got to prove it. I think people get a little too high on Ben. This is what I will say positively about Ben. I've been very impressed with how he conducts himself on Twitter, his trash talk. It's all a lot of fun. He's very good at it. It reminds me of a young Chael Sonnen, frankly. And I love it. I love that stuff. But
yeah, he's playful. He's intelligent. I mean, you may not like his views or may not like him, but he's bringing something to the game. He's adding some flavor. He's a little different. He's got his own deal.
Yeah.
So respect that. He's undefeated, and we're going to find out one way or another who he is, just the same way we found out one way or another who Justin Gaethje was, Yep. It'll present itself, and I think he's okay with that, and that's why I'm okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the record, I actually do see him getting past Lawler. I don't think it'll be easy. I think he's going to beat Lawler, and then I think he's going to get a step up in competition from there. From who, I don't know yet. It's too early to say. But I think that next step up, that's where he's going to get stopped. So I do not think that he is going to get to right under Woodley level. I'll be surprised if he does. I think that he's going to get a little exposed. His biggest wins are against Andrei Kreshkov and Douglas Lima many, many, many years ago. So,
that is true.
I'm
but
a little
again,
unimpressed.
You can't really verify the strength of his schedule. You really can't. You can't.
No, I know. We're gonna like you said.
You
said, we're gonna find out.
Exactly. And there's fun in finding out. I'm cool with finding out. I'm not saying he's the greatest fighter of all time. He's an undefeated guy who's coming to the UFC. If that doesn't excite you in some way, shape, or form, then what are you watching for?
Exactly. Totally agree. Well, we are just about
let's wrap
out
it
of
there.
time.
The questions are amazing. Thank you guys so much. Sorry to cut you off, Phil.
No.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. We didn't even get to all the questions. I apologize, guys, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for the questions, and I'm going to take note of who we didn't get to. Just a few people. We're going to make sure that we answer your questions next time. Thank you so much. Fight Geek, take it away with the little outro here.
Yeah, guys, thanks as usual for tuning in. You can always follow us at @split_podcast. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA, and he's at Phil the MMA Dude. You can find the Split Decision Podcast, 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast, on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and more. Do us a favor on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star review if that's the way you feel. We would appreciate that. We're trying to grow, like Phil said in the beginning. We'll be coming to you more consistently here in the future. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Peace.